Play mode.
Good afternoon, we're here again for the last session in our Big Year Abroad interview webinar series. It's Nicola Beadle here, author of Surviving Your Year Abroad, and we're here today with Chris Perry from Student Money and Me, and he's going to be talking, and he's one of the experts on a big issue for you guys out there, which is money on year abroad. It's a big issue for everybody. When we were writing the book, we found that at least a third of you out there feel financial pressure about year abroad. So hi Chris, would you like to start by telling us a little bit about Student Money and Me and its aims and how it can help?
Sure. Let me just give you a bit of background then to Student Money and Me. I am in the management training business, and about 3 years ago I was approached by a local school who asked me to pull together some material to come in and talk to their sixth form about student money, particularly focused on them going to university, but also those first jobs.
Yeah.
What I did was pull together a package of items which had a number of modules, things like obviously the student finance, grants and loans, which have become particularly important for students. But then we went into other things like work and tax that first year that you're working, bank accounts, credit cards, budgets, really just to cover some of those things that we so often take for granted, but actually if you get it wrong, you can end up in some real difficulties.
Yeah, I think that's one of the problems for a lot of students. I mean, even though when they come to go on year abroad, they have been at university for a couple of years, they've probably not been budgeting, or at least not as effective as they should have been.
Absolutely. And I think the thing with budgeting, and it's the point that I certainly make in the presentation to the students, is that it doesn't matter what level of budgeting you do. It's got to be appropriate for you, and that might be on the back of an envelope, it might be on a spreadsheet, it may be very informal. The important thing is to have forced yourself to think about it and just start mapping out what you think you're going to be spending and how much money you're either going to have right at the start of this year abroad, or what your abilities are going to be to earn whilst you are abroad.
Mm-hmm. And what are ways, do you know any ways of sort of ways students can save effectively? Because a lot of students obviously find it hard to save before they go, because maybe they're just dependent on their student loans, on their maintenance loans. Is there any way they can sort of bring the costs down?
Well, yes, I think there are. And, there is the obvious one, which is whilst you are at university, although you're going to be mighty busy, depending on the course that you're doing, on the reading and on the work that you obviously have to do for your course, there is nothing to stop you going out and getting some casual work. And I've known one or two students who have been very disciplined in their approaches, doing nothing more than maybe a couple of evenings a week, a couple of 4-hour shifts, maybe an 8-hour shift on the weekend. And of course, if you're doing that every weekend, it's surprising how quickly you can start accumulating money. And as one of the people said to me, actually the biggest saving is the evening I'm working, I'm not out there spending money.
Yeah, definitely. That's a big thing.
And it is, it's building it up little by little. I think some of the other areas that you can start doing is not leaving everything till the last minute. Start thinking about your trip early on.
Yeah.
Using eBay, using Amazon effectively. All you guys out there I know are pretty hot on using voucher codes. But things like buying those travel guides online, particularly on eBay, instead of paying that 14 or 15 pounds, you can very often pick them up for £2 or £3. Clothes as well, depending on whether you're going to a hot climate or a cold climate. Again, you know, take the time to use places like TK Maxx. You're not going to be able to walk in there and buy exactly what you want when you want it, but if you become a frequent visitor, you can certainly end up picking up some very good quality clothing, and again, there are significant savings that you can make.
That's actually really good. I hadn't actually thought of that, because a lot of year abroad students, they go and they get there, and they're often faced with an apartment that, okay, maybe it's got the bare basics, but it might not have bedding, it might not have utensils and things like that. And I've never thought of really using eBay to get those kind of things quite cheap, especially because eBay now operates in so many countries. I've never thought that. That's actually really good.
It is just think. As I said, Nicola, I think a really important thing for them to do is start thinking about it, and that's the same with budgeting. By forcing yourself to start thinking about it, when you get there, it's all so easy. It's when you give it no thought that it will catch you out.
Yes, definitely. And if it does catch them out, what should they do?
Right. Again, I suppose it does come down to that little bit of preparation and thinking about beforehand. You know, in terms of travel money, there's all sorts of things that we can now do. Once upon a time, you didn't just travel with currency, you travelled with travel checks. This was a reasonably safe way of having some money that if it was stolen from you, you could get them replaced. But of course, in these electronic days, there's a tendency to rely on the basic bank card, the basic credit card. The danger there is theft. The danger is that it gets used, taken from you, and suddenly you find that you've accumulated a lot of debt, and if it's been stolen, someone else has accumulated that debt for you. I think what it's really useful to do is, instead of arming yourself with your normal debit and credit card, is actually sort something out specifically for travel abroad. There are some very good cards which effectively are prepaid cards.
Right.
What I mean by that is you put the money onto the card before you leave, and it is only that money that can be used, drawn out, or used to pay with for things whilst you are abroad.
Are those fairly safe then, from sort of fraud and things like that?
Well, I suppose the safety factor, Nicola, is that if you can organise it, particularly if you can use a friend, a parent, back here, there is nothing to stop you organising it in a way where every month, perhaps, you get £100, £200 put into that account here, back home, allowing you to call off and draw that money and spend it abroad. The safety factor being that if your card ever does get stolen, you know that you have minimised your the risk and the value of money that can be taken.
Yeah, definitely. And I suppose as well, if you're doing that, if you're getting a certain amount each month, then your budgeting can't really go wrong, can it?
Well, and again, I think that is a good discipline in its own right.
Yeah.
The fear always of the credit card, you know, and it doesn't matter whether you're talking to students, it doesn't matter whether you're talking to people who are a little bit longer in the tooth. I mean, we all get caught out with a credit card. We go out for the weekend, we nip in and have a coffee, we pop out for something to eat, we see a few friends and have a couple of drinks. On the way home we decide we'll visit the cinema, have a bite to eat, and suddenly you're looking at £200 has gone on your credit card and you haven't realised it.
Yeah.
I think a very good discipline is to use cash. Buy anything and everything that you can on cash. You really do notice and feel that money going out. And of course, when you've used the cash, you know you're hitting your head against the ceiling on your budget.
Yeah, definitely. Good words of advice there. So I suppose your advice there is really saying only use a credit card in emergency situations.
It's that emergency. Exactly, Nicola. I think, it is useful to have it. Of course, there are other mechanisms that we can have. Again, having a bit of money left in an account back in the UK that is completely ring-fenced and safe, should you get into difficulties, you know that you can electronically go online, maybe transfer it to an account. There's Western Union, which is a possible mechanism for transferring money. And again, let's go back to parents, friends that you can call upon who can these days wire money out to you if you get into difficulties. And again, there's no harm in saying to one of your serious friends, and I'm talking about a real friend here, of maybe lodging £100 or so with them and saying, look, if you get a call from me, it's an emergency. What I'd like you to do is put that money into this account, or send it to me. And again, you've got that fallback. And of course, if you're having to use it, that's another warning signal that you've met your limit, and you need to think about getting yourself back, getting more money, earning money in a job. So it's a bit of a mechanism to act as a warning light for you.
Yeah, one of the girls I spoke to who had been on year abroad, who I interviewed for the book, she actually mentioned that in sort of the year running up to her year abroad, she spoke to her family and friends, and instead of getting presents and things like that for Christmas, which is just around the corner, and for birthdays, they actually made a donation to her year abroad fund, which I thought was a great way of financing it.
Yeah, money is always useful, and of course the other thing to remember is that, and again, it's about limiting your expenditure in this country for that year beforehand. And one thing that your listeners need to think about is, particularly if they're going out east, which is one of the obvious destinations, £20 over here, which might be, for example, a book, it might be an evening out at the cinema, £20 over there will buy you maybe a whole day's worth of scuba diving. It might look after your food for 3 or 4 days. Mm-hmm. And if you start thinking about it in those terms, it just somehow makes it a lot easier to go without those fivers here and there that are so easy to spend, but are going to give you actually much better reward when you're out travelling.
Definitely. Yeah, that's great. That's really, really good. It's a really good way to think about it as well, because it makes you feel like it's not as depriving yourself as much, almost, and it's depriving is a bad word, but you're not sort of saying no to everything for no reason. You're saying it because well, this will buy me an exciting day out or something like that when I'm away. So my final sort of question for you today is, what would be the most important thing that someone should sort out before they go abroad, regarding their finances, before they go? If they've not got long, if they've not had much time to save, what's the one thing they can do to sort of make sure that they're ready?
Get insurance.
Mm-hmm.
That's absolutely key.
Yeah.
Particularly if you're travelling in America.
Right.
If you're going into countries that are fairly advanced that do not have the medical fallback that we are spoilt with,
Yeah.
it really can crucify you. That insurance, if you like, is a bit of a get out of jail card if things go badly wrong and the worst does happen to you.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a very important one. And of course, if you're travelling in Europe, again, get something for free. Get that European card.
Mm-hmm.
What used to be called the 111 card. What it gives you,
certainly in thinking about the ski season that's coming up,
Yeah.
If
in Europe you can demonstrate you've got that card, if the people in that country can walk into a hospital and
get help, likewise with that card, that E111 card, you will be able
to do the same.
So I think insurance and that
E111 card are two things I would definitely promote.
Yeah.
I think thirdly,
whenever you're going to any country, write down a few key contact telephone numbers. And I'm talking about getting into difficulties in those countries. You need to know how to get hold of the British Embassy, the consulate, or any other UK-based agencies that are over there. Because in the country, that call, they're au fait with all of the local procedures. They will be able to point you in the right direction.
Yeah, definitely. Mm-hmm. And just a word to that, for anybody listening out there, if you're going a year abroad, there are specialist insurance that you do, well, which you should get because it covers you whether you're teaching, whether you're working, whether you're studying. Most universities in Europe and in the US they'll require you to have this sort of year abroad insurance. You can get that. There's lots of companies out there who will be able to provide a decent quote for you, and also they're tailored to students as well. But yeah, it's definitely really important. Definitely really important to get your E111 e-hit card, because, like you say, it entitles you to free healthcare wherever they can get healthcare within Europe.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So thank you very much. That's been really, really helpful. I'm sure everybody will love listening to it.
Okay. One other thing that I would say, Nicola,
again, you say, if you're going off quickly, but, do that little bit of research. Start looking at the country and finding out if you can get jobs abroad. There are a lot of countries where you might be able to sort out a bit of temporary, a bit of casual work. My son recently returned from Japan.
Mm-hmm.
The Japanese love that ability to speak English, and they are very willing and keen to pay for someone, even if it's a sort of week's worth of a language course, just to go in and talk English with them. You just go to other further flung countries, Australia, again, there may well be some opportunities, maybe not brilliantly paid, but to certainly pick up some cash for temporary work. Clearly, don't break the law, be sensible, but it's about doing that research. Staying in those places where travellers stay. Yeah. Don't go for the mainstream hotels. Go into the hostels, and as soon as you go in there, you start talking the language of travel, and you will find that someone can always point you in the right direction, give you that advice, and it's that travelling community that you can call on, and as you will well know, really can be helpful.
Definitely. Having the people around you contact within the country, they're just so important. That often if you're in a bit of you get yourself into a bit of a mess, or if there's any sort of problem, they're always there to sort it out with you, whether that's financially or through other means as well. Definitely, yeah, very important.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much, Chris. I really